Floor to the representative of the Russian Federation.
Mr. President, we'd like to thank the Special Coordinator for the UN on the Middle East peace process, Mr. Mladinov, for his briefing on the situation in the Palestinian occupied territories. The solution to the Palestinian problem and achieving a comprehensive Middle East settlement based on the Security Council resolutions must remain one of the priorities of world diplomacy. We are saying this because the Middle East is still riddled with destabilizing movements. Many of them are designed to come from inside. Old crises are still there as new ones crop up. Over the recent days, the Persian Gulf has seen an increase in tensions, which, in our opinion, have been artificially exacerbated. This crisis threatens peace and security in the region and also threatens international efforts to resolve regional crises and conflicts, including the Palestinian-Israeli conflict. We would like to warn straight away any adventurism in the use of force, whether that is implemented or not, is bound to catastrophe. The outbreaks of violence that are easy to predict would occur, and there'll be new waves of migration flows. The impact for all of those people who undertook such attempts would be extremely bad. There is a need for urgent de-escalation and for a negotiated settlement to the current disputes. Confrontation must give way to dialogue. Once again, we'd like to remind you of the relevant mandate of the Secretary General of the UN in line with UN Security Council Resolution 598. This, in cooperation with regional players, must address security in the region. Security is unified. It is inviolable for each and every person, and no preference can be given to any particular state. The formula whereby some are favored over others is not going to work. We must ensure that new fault lines must not make null and void the positive results that have been noted over recent times in the region. In vast swathes of the Syrian Arab Republic territory, life is gradually getting back to normal. Political and economic assistance is being provided to Iraq, which has chosen good neighborly relations as its foreign policy priority. The special representatives of the UN Secretary General are working actively to find solutions to other conflicts and hotspots in the world. Efforts are being taken to bolster efforts to combat the terrorist threat. And this can only be overcome by displaying a very united front. At the same time, there is still a deadlock in the quest for a solution to that key Middle East issue, namely the Palestinian-Israeli conflict. Over recent times on this track, dangerous trends have dominated in the form of unilateral steps and also an aggressive revision of previously reached agreements. For us, the internationally recognized basis for the Middle East settlement, including the Security Council resolutions, the Arab Peace Initiative that were adopted by the heads of state of the Arab world, and the Madrid Principles remain inviolable. We see no alternative to the two-state solution. Any work to improve the situation in the Palestinian territories must be part of a package on a settlement. Otherwise, any peace initiative is going to be doomed to failure. We would draw attention to the fact that in this matter, there has been many years of international consensus. The status of the occupied Palestinian territories and other occupied territories, including the Syrian Golan, is determined by the relevant UN Security Council resolutions. There are no unilateral steps that are going to be able to change that reality. We are firmly convinced that no progress can be made in isolation. The history of this has proved this. We believe that the Middle East Quartet of International Mediators to be a unique mechanism that has been approved by the Security Council, and it is a pertinent and necessary format. We'd like to remind you of the report of the Quartet of 2016 that contains a detailed roadmap to resume a sustainable political process. Russia historically, customarily, has supported good, friendly relations both with the Israelis and the Palestinians. And this is precisely why we are convinced that establishing a political process to implement a two-state formula meets the expectations not only of the Palestinians, but also meets the concerns of the Israelis in the area of security. We deem it's necessary to more actively involve regional players and the League of Arab States in efforts to achieve peace in Palestine and in the Middle East as a whole. We're in favor of a strong and unified League of Arab States, including on different international issues, including the Palestinian issue. Russia will continue to assist the establishment of a positive agenda on the Middle East settlement issue. Our proposal to hold in Russia a summit between the leaders of Palestine and Israel is still there on the table and pertinent. The time has long come to implement the Russian initiative on having a UN Security Council mission. We've been working over decades and have contacts with all parties, and we will help to establish the unity of the Palestinian ranks. We greatly commend the Egyptian efforts here. There's a need for active international efforts to improve the depressing humanitarian situation in the Gaza Strip. Any assistance to the Gaza Strip, however, must be implemented coordinated with the legitimate authorities headed up by President Abbas, and should be part of a decision to rebuild Palestinian unity. We believe that that very principle, or these principles, should guide the UN and all parties. We will actively support the UNRWA work, which is humanitarian in nature, but it also has a serious political component to it as well. Mr. President, a lack of stability in the Middle East requires unified efforts. There's a need for urgent measures to break the Palestinian-Israeli issue out of its deadlock. It's important to take steps to spread interfaith and inter-ethnic culture of peace. This would prevent new tensions from cropping up on ethnic and faith grounds. It would protect Christians and other religious minorities in the region that for millennia lived in the Middle East, and they were an extremely important component. They talked about their beliefs of tolerance, but because of the threat of genocide, they had to leave the region. One must act here, however, not with the logic of imposing an outdated bloc mentality that is directed against somebody in particular. Rather, the focus must be on creating a forum for dialogue to find solutions to security problems in the Middle East. Once again, we would draw attention to the relevant Russian initiative on the security architecture in the Middle East. We are prepared to have constructive cooperation with partners on all items on the Middle East agenda. The political solutions, all the different challenges, the solutions are all political and not military. We believe that work in the Middle East means that there must be a refutation of any arbitrary interpretation of any rules or a return to there must be a return to the source of the very fundamental principles of the UN Charter and of international law. Thank you very much indeed.
I thank the representative of the Russian Federation for his statement. I should now